everyone. Welcome to our webinar here. Thank you for joining us. We're going to be talking about loyal staff and how that leads to loyal patients. And obviously, we've got a bunch of dentists here on the line today. And so we're going to get into a really good, healthy conversation around how do you actually work with your staff and lead them appropriately to get the output you're looking for. We're going to talk about all kinds of fun stuff here. If you don't know who we are Cultivate Advisors. We actually work with small business owners like dentists on a daily basis. We work with our small business owners to help them learn how to handle all of the hats, right? As a small business owner, even as a dentist, yeah, you're really good at the technical side of it, but are you really good at the leadership, infusing the technology, really good at marketing? How about selling clients in, right? There's so many more things that go on, especially recruiting, in terms of having a great practice. And so we are going to talk, so what we do is we actually help these small business owners, including these dentists, kind of take their business to the next level. So a lot of this training we're going to provide to you today comes from a lot of our content that we work with our clients on a daily basis. So really happy to share it with all of you. We do work with a lot of other hats, not just leadership and the recruiting side, which is what we're going to talk about today. But just you can kind of see the picture here. These are some of the hats we're working on a daily basis. So as advisors, we actually help our small business owners do the work. So we don't just teach, we also come in and actually help them, coach them to get to the next level. And that's a little bit about who we are. Now let's talk about today and some quick expectations for our webinar for everybody. If you have some questions, you can do it two different places. You can actually throw it in the chat room and we'll try to get your answers. Or there's also a Q&A button if you want to look for that. You'll be able to open that up and that comes straight to us. If for some reason we don't answer that question, just know we are capturing and we will reach out after the webinar with some of those answers. So feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like. Our goal is to get you those answers. As far as polls, we have a few polls that we will announce and we'll ask that you just vote. And we'll then announce kind of who the winners were. And that's just a good way for us to get a pulse on the group. And last but not least, I always get this question early on in the chat room. I will be sending out this deck. So at the very end, as long as you stick around, you'll be able to select that you would like the deck to be sent your way. And we will send that as well as a couple other resources. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Casey Clark. I'm actually the CEO of Cultivate Advisors. We have 25 advisors across the country and Canada that work full-time to help support small business owners. So we work with around 250 small business owners on a consistent monthly basis. This is what we know. Myself, I've ran a business for a lot of years, and I've got the experience of what it takes to hire, and that's what I'm really excited to talk to you about. I've led over 2,000 people in some of my previous companies I owned before starting this firm, but I've also led and coached about 750 owners, including several dentists. So a lot of experience, but I'm still learning, right? At the end of the day, leadership and recruiting is a very challenging skill to master. And as the market and the human capital world changes and evolves, especially with some technology things that are happening, it can be very, very difficult to navigate those waters. And we're going to talk a little bit specifically towards the dental practices and what you might be uncovering, and hopefully it resonates with you. So just kind of quick purpose here. We want to help provide some skills today that are going to help you increase the retention of your staff. Therefore, we'll build the loyal patient following. And really what I'm looking for everybody on the webinar today is to walk away with two clear takeaways. You're not going to come out of this and you may have a page full of notes, but that's not the expectations. You're going to hear some things that you go, I've probably heard that before. I've read that before in a book. That's perfectly okay. It's not rocket science. We're going to try to break down some things you might be doing though and show you some different ways to do those things. And my goal is that at the very end, you're able to acknowledge, here are two clear takeaways that I have from today that I'm going to try to implement and do differently moving forward. So today's roadmap, just so you know what to expect, I'm going to talk about some generational gaps. From our experience working with dental practices, we've noticed there's a lot of generational gaps inside of these offices, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm then going to move into situational leadership. This is actually based from a book by Ken Blanchard. I'm going to walk through some of those principles and give some really high-level leadership examples that you can use while you're in your practice. And last but not least, we're going to talk about some leadership systems. And you may not know what that is, and that's okay, but I'll clear that up and give you some really clear action steps of how you can implement the proper leadership systems when you work with all your employees within your practice. So I want to tell you guys a story as we got into this. I needed to go down to Christmas, and I needed to provide some type of food or something, to give to my family and our family potluck and all the extended family. And what I noticed was everybody had the market cornered, meaning, they already had the people bringing the dumplings or the meat or the vegetables, whatever it might be. There were some pies, but I realized that no one had the cupcake market. And you'll know why I'm giving you this story here in just a moment. But I obviously did what any millennial does. I went online and I searched and found the best Pinterest photo possible. And I found this unbelievable picture of a cupcake. And I said, I can make that. I found the directions. I read through how it all supposed to look. And it went pretty well. We drove 3 hours south to be with my family. And this is what they look like when I unpack them. All right. So it didn't go that well. All right. Here's the problem. In my mind, these looked a lot better before I got there. You don't understand. They forgot to leave a very important part of the directions. What they didn't do is they didn't actually say, if you travel for 3 hours in a car in the heat, with the heat on, they will melt. Therefore, here's my cupcake. So obviously a little bit of an embarrassing story. I still think I would get pretty highly ranked or go viral in terms of bad Pinterest fails. But nonetheless, this is my story. And why I share this with you is because a lot of times when we work on leadership, there's a lot of egos. A lot of people go, well, I'm a good leader. Today is not about that, right? Although you may think you look like the picture on the left, the reality is you actually maybe felt like the picture on the right. And that's the point of this, is to say we all have progress. We all have things we can work on. Though we're doing our very best, it doesn't mean there's not a little bit of area we can grow to get better. And I'm asking everybody to put their ego at the door as we go through some of this and try to look through it with an introspective lens, so we can try to find some changes you can make. So, everybody's coming in at a different level. Some people maybe on the line have had leadership training and have worked on this. Some people maybe haven't. They've gone through school, they've gotten into practice. It's been more focused on the technical side, which makes sense. But in order to have a really successful dental practice, I think leadership is a really important hat that can absolutely dictate how many patients you have and how successful your practice will be or become. So a lot of you may be on different steps here. You might be at the beginner stage, you might be at the expert stage. Today is not about me taking you from beginner to expert. Today is about identifying where you're at and then moving a step or two forward. So again, just looking for those one or two things. I'm not asking you to leave today and go implement 100 things. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to stay fairly surfaced and dive in on a few core areas, just because I know if I give you something tangible, you'll be able to implement it versus overwhelm you. And I just want to make sure I set that expectation. So let's go ahead and jump into a poll here. I have a question here around this dentist versus hygienist here. So let me go ahead and get this launched. And it should pop up here. So what I'm looking for is, whose relationship do you think the patients are most likely to come back to your practice because? Is it dentist or is it hygienist? Which one is it and why? All right, give it just another second here for everybody to get voted. Again, just whose relationship do you think the patients are most likely to come back with? Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end this poll. So as you guys can see, we've got a 50-50 split. All right, so we've got 50% of folks who are approaching this saying, I believe that the dentist is why they come back. And then we've got other folks saying, I believe it's the hygienist is why they come back. Very interesting. Well, I'm here to tell you from my own personal experience. Now, obviously, I'm not a dentist, but I have been a CEO. I have led a lot of people. And from the outside, being your client, I absolutely come back for my hygienist. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm right, okay? That doesn't mean it can't be because of the dentist. I do need to trust the dentist. But partially, the shortest amount of time the dentist is with me and the way they give me the review in less than a minute or two after they inspect, I'm happy. I actually want to keep going back. Versus if the dentist keeps coming in and showing me how screwed up my teeth are, I'm a little less comfortable. Now, doesn't mean I'm not appreciative. It just means the reality is I have my relationship with the hygienist. I know about their kids. I know about what she's working towards in life and why she works here and why she likes working here. I have that relationship. Reality is I'm bummed if I get assigned a different hygienist. Now, again, that's just me, but I think if you ask a very wide array of clients, you might find that it's more of the hygienist than the dentist that keeps people coming back. And not in every firm, but what I continue to find is most firms. So let's go a little further here and let's talk through how do we actually work through this? And I want to talk about some generational gaps between the dentist and the hygienist and what could be happening in terms of leadership. So baby boomers, we're talking about these generational gaps. You may have baby boomers in your office. Look, baby boomers, this is how they got through their career. They pushed themselves through drywall every day. And I'm sure some people are sitting here, if they're a baby boomer, going, yep, absolutely. We were very loyal. We worked very, very hard. Well, let's flip it. Millennials, they ask why, and then they do the bare minimum. Right? That's a bit of the stereotype, and it's true. And the reality is those are two very different philosophies. You have the baby boomers like stay loyal, work very, very hard. You have the millennials that are coming in asking why and doing the bare minimum. And here's the thing, the baby boomers have gotten mad because millennials want something for nothing, right? That's essentially how they view it. But if we flip that, the millennials get mad because you taught them to work smarter, not harder. And now you despise them for actually doing it. If you think about it, there is some stereotypical aspects when it comes to generational gaps. And if you are a doctor and maybe you're in the millennial side, you've just gotten into your practice and you're working with more baby boomer focused employees, you've got to learn how to speak their language and lead them. That's your responsibility. And I'll flip that. If you're maybe on the different generation and you're working with more younger hygienists, you've got to approach that differently. You've got to lead differently based on them being a millennial. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that through situational leadership. The biggest key, though, is that you're always looking at the why when you're in leadership. So one of my favorite authors, Simon Sinek, maybe some of you have heard of him, he has this really great book, talks about explaining the why. And what he talks about is that everyone is focused on what I need to do, what's the task, or how to do the task. But what's really missed in leadership is always explaining the why I need you to do something. This is why I need this, or this is why we do it this way in our dental practice. And when that's missed, you're going to have a lot of problems. Now, baby boomers generally will do the what and how without hearing the why. But millennials often struggle to do the how and the what unless you've slowed down and given the why. And I'll give you a really clear example of this. So think about it from a GPS standpoint, right? All millennials have grown up with GPS. So when they drive, they know where they're headed, right? So they have this GPS telling them exactly what to do, right? But the reality is that if there's traffic, right? Traffic comes up, it will reroute you and it'll tell you that you need to do something different. But it's, you know, the reason why. It's told you you must take a left. Imagine if somebody said, if your GPS came on and said, turn left. No reason why. All of a sudden you were just turning. Yes, you'd follow it once or twice, and so you felt you were going way out of your way. And all of a sudden, as the person being led, you're not interested anymore in following those directions. And that's how you can sometimes see these conflicts versus this partnership that happens between the dentist and the hygienist. So it's important that when you're leading, just a quick tip as we get into it, I want you to focus on the why, not the how and the what. Now, that doesn't mean every time you assign a task, you need to share the why. But when you're training them, when you're onboarding them, slow down and explain the why. If you ask them to do something a little out of the ordinary, don't just expect they know how to do it. Don't just bark the orders. Slow down and share the why. You'll find the two generations will be able to speak much more clearly together as they work to have the highest productivity possible within their practice. So let's get into the thick stuff here. Let's start talking about how to increase your leadership skills. So as we look at this situational leadership standpoint, there's really a couple different types of styles. There's the director, there's the coach, there's the supportive, and then there's the delegator, okay? Now, you know, this again comes from the situational leadership book called The 1 Minute Manager. So if you want to go a lot further on this training, I strongly encourage you to pick up that book through Amazon. It's very inexpensive. It's a very quick read. I think you'll get a lot of traction out of it. But let's talk about what these 4 styles are and how to actually use them. From the director standpoint, right, this is where they define the roles and the tasks. They're very one-way decisions. So it's commonly the person that will jump into leadership and say, hey, I need you to do this. Hey, can you do this? I'm the director. I need you to do it my way. But as if we jump into instead the coach, these people are normally seeking ideas or suggestions. So commonly it sounds like this. Hey, we need to get this done. How can we go about that? Or what are ideas you have? And then it's a coaching relationship that allows you to move that forward. Or you can look at the supportive side. Naturally, they already know the tasks to do. You're just looking to build their confidence, motivate them, and give some praise. That's being the supporter behind them and consistently checking in. But the one that I find a lot of people struggle with, especially inside of the dental practices that we've been a part of, is when it's the delegation. It's where you have this high trust and you need little supervision. But often, sometimes that trust isn't there and you do need more supervision, but you delegate anyway. And you wonder why problems are happening. So what takes place here is when you work through this, you have to really think about each person situationally and how to apply one of those 4 styles. So I'm going to slow it down a little further. I want each person on the call, take out a piece of paper or jump on a notepad on your computer, and I'd like you to think of a person or a challenge that you're having. I'm just going to give everybody just a moment to write this down so they can keep up. So think of a person and a challenge that you're having. And now that you have that person, if you're struggling on the challenge, think of just what is a task they're really bad at. Now notice I said task, not attribute. This is something you want them to change. An attribute, right, would be something like hardworking, or they are loyal. That would be an attribute. Or they're very organized. That's not a task. Common people share the concerns they have with their employees, and they share attributes. What you need to hire based on your preferred attributes, that's a whole other conversation. Today, we're actually talking about the leadership of tasks. So I need you to think about what's the task that you really struggle with them on. They're not good at this. I'll give everybody just another second here. All right. So a task is, again, a specific job, a chore, a duty, whatever it might be, as a task is not a characteristic, a trait, emotion. So hopefully you did get a task written down. And now we're going to talk about how to lead that person in that task as you follow along. So I want you now to write down, how long has this challenge existed? How long has this been going on? Measure it in months or years. And now what I'd like you to put down is, what style have you been using? So now you should have, who's the person? What is the challenge? And identify what's the task that they need more training on or they need better leadership on. Now you're going to write down, how long has that happened? How long has that been going on for? And what style have you been using? And again, the 4 styles, right? Directive, coach, support, or delegative. Again, it's directive, coaching, supportive, or delegative. It's one of those 4 is what we're looking for. All right, so as you see these, did you pick right? Were you the director, which again, you were very straightforward, you were giving clear examples of what they must do with the tasks? Or were you the coach? Were you polling questions and asking? Or were you the supporter, just being supportive, like, yep, you know what to do, assuming they have it? Or were you delegating? Here's the task you need to do. Majority of the time, most likely, you've misgauged, if they're not good at that task, what you need to do. And I'll give you a few examples of this. As a leader, if someone is not good at a task and you're delegating to them, they obviously don't know what they're doing. You must show them what to do. And I'll flip it. Some of you on the line may be thinking, no, Casey, I've done those. I've told them. They just don't do it. Okay, so you keep telling them what to do, but that's not the style they need. They need to get either into coach or supporter. And that's where they're going to be needed. And I'm going to break this down further so I can give you a bit of an example of how to understand this. So when you have somebody who is not doing a task or doing a task, or doing the task well or not doing the task well, it really just comes down to 2 clear principles. Are they committed and are they skilled? right? And this is going to be the matrix I use to help you come up with a formula you can use when you lead your people. And so on the task, if it's commitment, that would probably mean that it's somebody that is either not willing, right? Or they're not confident. So it could be they're not confident in how to do the task well, or they're just not willing to do it. Now, willingness falls under loyalness, but it doesn't mean that they don't want to be loyal. They just may be so uncomfortable, they just can't possibly do that task. As on the confidence side, they just, because they're not great at it, they don't know how to do it, they don't go do it themselves, right? They need some extra help. If you have someone having an issue on the commitment side, you probably have either trained them wrong, or number two, you have the wrong person. So if it's a commitment issue, this is not always fixable, all right? The confidence side is, but the willingness side is not. You either have to come up with a different way they can approach that task where they are willing to do it, which the best way to do that is ask the question, how else could they approach to get to the same end goal? Or you have to get them better at the task so their confidence increases. And I'll give you an example here in just a moment. Let me break down skill. I broke down commitment. Now I'm going to break down skill for you. We have to talk through, do they have the knowledge, but do they have the experience? And your practice is what I found when we work with dentists is this. When we get in, often they go, well, they went through the training. They're certified. They can be a hygienist. They must know how to do it because they've been through the training. I've been through the training. But do they have the experience of that? Do they have the confidence on that task? That's what I don't know, all right? And that's what you have to figure out with this person. So you wrote down this individual and this task that you're having. Here's what I'd like you to do. I want you to rank, I'm going to go back here. I'd like you to rank them on willingness 1 through 10. How willing do you think they are to complete that task? Just 1 through 10. 10 being extremely willing, 1 not so much. All right, now confidence. What's their confidence on the task that you wrote down that they're struggling with? Again, 1 through 10. 10 extremely confident, 1 not confident at all. All right, now let's do the skill. 1 through 10 on knowledge. How are they knowledgeable? Can they tell you back, this is how you're supposed to do it analytically, to do whatever task you're asking them? 1 through 10. 10 extremely knowledgeable, they should have it. 1, they're not knowledgeable, they have no idea. And last but not least, experience. I'm asking for 1 more rating of 1 through 10 on the experience side. 1 being they don't have any experience doing it, 10 they have a lot. And let me give you an example. If someone has not done something 20 to 30 times, they do not have a lot of experience. It takes that much time to create a pattern. So make sure that you honor that when you pick your rating. So you should have 4 numbers, all right? 2 on the commitment side and 2 on the skill side. And what I'm going to ask you to do is average them. So if you have a 4 and a 7, right, on the commitment side, your average would be a 5 or 6. If you have a 7 and a 9 on the skill side, your average would be an 8. So you're going to merge into an average skill number and an average commitment number. And I'm going to show you what to do that here in just a moment, but I'll repeat myself if anybody didn't follow. You're going to take your 4 numbers. You're going to take the 2 from commitment and average them. And you're going to take the 2 from skill and you're going to average them. And you should have a skill rating and a commitment rating. Now, I'm obviously slowing this down, and I'll talk about how to do this live time where you don't have to run numbers. All right, now we've got a grid. Here's what I'm looking for you to do. I want you to go ahead and place this on the grid based on what color. If they're black, that would mean that you rank them a 5 or above on commitment, but below a 5 on skill. If they're navy, down below bottom left, that would mean that they're 5 or below on commitment, or 5 and below on skill. If it's in the green to the bottom right, that would mean that they are low on commitment, but high on skill. And if you are up inside of the navy color here, you are going to see a high skill as well as a high commitment. So go ahead and plot that graph. All right, so you have your task, who you're having the challenge with. You've now plotted your scores. We've really slowed this down so we can understand it. Let's make sure you understand what you just selected. These are the 4 different styles. So are you doing the right style? So somebody said, I have low skill and low commitment. I need to coach them. But yet you might have wrote when I asked you to write down what was the style, maybe you chose delegator. Well, that means you're just telling them to go do it. They don't feel supported. They don't feel coached. They don't know what to do with it. Let's flip some other examples. You could be continuing just to be a director, just always telling them what to do. But the reality is, as you said, they're actually pretty high skill. They're actually pretty high commitment. You should be delegating. Stop talking down to them and telling them what they know what to do. You can just ask them. The biggest question I get asked is, well, Casey, so this is great. I now know I have a simple matrix and a quick exercise I can use over and over and over again when I'm leading. But how do I do that live time? If I'm inside of my practice, I'm working on a patient, I have to assign a task quickly. How the heck do I do that? I'm not going to take the time to run these numbers. Of course not. I've been working through this for the last 15 years. It's like it's back of my hand, just like it probably is for you when you look at teeth, right? It's no different. What you have to do is you have to actually learn to teach this to your hygienist. I'm actually asking you to take this deck, show this to your hygienist, and talk openly about the different leadership styles. Because people usually know what they want. When you announce the task, this is the task I would like you to do, then that hygienist is able to say, awesome, I know what to do, you can delegate that to me. Hey, I don't really know how to do that. Can you walk me through as a director how to do that? By creating this common language, you start to amend some of these generational gaps or these leadership friction points between the hygienist and the dentist. And this is really where this situational leadership comes into play. One last piece I want to point out before I move forward. You must hit each style on a task, not a person. So you're measuring the task, not the person, meaning if you're just being one style with one person over and over and over again, you're doing something wrong as a leader. You should be completely changing. Just because you have an all-star hygienist and you always just delegate, the moment you give her a new task, you may need to approach it differently. So as we talk through director, I want to make sure you know how this feels or how this sounds so you can make it a little bit more tangible as you work on your leadership styles. The director is, I'm going to explain what I'm doing. And that's the easy part. Here's the task. I need you to do it this way. The 2 things that people miss are this. They don't get far enough into the details, really creating more of a step-by-step process, similar to what I'm doing on this webinar. But the second thing that they really struggle with is they don't ask the other person to validate. And that's a big miss when you think about how to have a directive leadership style. When you work with your employee, it's important that when you give them that direction, you always take that 1 second just to say, can you validate back what you heard me say? Why would you do that? Well, it helps you know, did they hear it? It helps you hold them accountable that you don't have to keep giving them direction. So if you're someone on the line that consistently finds themselves being in this director mode and you're frustrated and just not understanding why people are moving, you need to make sure you explain and then ask them to repeat it back. Now, if they can repeat it back and you have to keep doing it, you have the wrong person. You need to actually move on and find a new person that's going to allow you to get a better hygienist or add an employee, again, to have a better operating practice. Let's talk about the coach. This is where you actually align with your employee on what is the task. Everybody's clear on the end goal and the why of that task. But you need to ask them how they want to approach it. Now, this can be hard. You're in the day-to-day, you're moving very quick. To be able to slow down and say, hey, we need to get this task completed. How do you want to approach that? That last little piece is what the question you want to ask. And when you ask that, it allows them to say, I'll do this, this, and this. What you want to do then is, if it gets to the same end goal, let them do it their way. don't feel like you have to apply your way, but you want to tweak. Think about the coach, right? When you have a golfer, somebody who's golfing, the coaches of golfing are only looking for little tweaks. They very rarely will change the entire swing. That's your job. Listen to how they want to approach it and just offer a few tweaks. The key is to work from their mindset, because what's happening is they're low on commitment and they're low on skill, meaning they need advice, but they're not extremely open because they're not fully confident, they're not fully willing. So you have to get them to think on their own. Let's talk about the supporter. Maybe this is, for some of you on the line, this is where you're struggling. After this is more of like you've given them a task and they bring you a concern. What naturally happens is people just, it's day to day. Oh, you'll figure it out. Go do it. Instead, you've got to slow down and just listen for a minute. No, I fully hear what you're saying. I understand it's hard to do this, this, and this. But you have to empathize with them and help them realize that although you're struggling with this, you are going to need to make the change to do this X, Y, and Z. And this is really where we want to spend the time, all right? This is really where you're going to go, I'm here to support you. How can I help you? You don't need to tell them what to do. You don't need to coach them through it. You just need to say, how can I help? Because here's why. Remember what this is. They're really high skill, but they're low commitment, meaning they know how to do it. They're just having a bad day or something's happening. And they're coming back to you and trying to get out of it or not doing it as good as they should. And this is your ability to communicate to them, right? And tell them, look, I'm here to support you. How can I help? It's about crisis of engagement. For some reason, they've gotten stuck. And by just partnering side by side with them and moving forward, you'll get them moving and their confidence will raise back up and they'll be driving. Last but not least is the delegator. And again, from my experience working with dental firms and all the dental firms we've worked with, what we found is that a lot of dentists are in delegation mode. It's a bit of the nature of the business, right? You're sitting at the chair, you're working with your patient. Hey, do this. Hey, do this. Hey, do this. When that patient's not there and you're running the business, you naturally stay in that same style. Problem is that you don't know that they know what they're doing. So when you give them that new task or you ask them to do something, maybe it's a little outside of the norm, tell them what you're looking to have done and then ask, can I delegate that to you? Do you know how to do that? Make them say yes. That now allows you to hold them accountable that you went through that and allows you to go, yes, do it. And again, it's focused on the what, not the how. You're just focused on what the end goal is. Often people who delegate and get frustrated are those that they wish they would have done it their way. You've got to get out of that. It's not about your way anymore when you delegate. I don't care how you get to the end goal. I just care that this end task is accomplished. So these are the four. You've got your scale. And again, we are going to be able to send this deck out. So if you're interested in that, we'll make sure that you get it at the end of the call here. We'll give you an option to grab it. But this is a great system. I actually, even though I've learned this for so many years, I still at times will print this out. And if I'm at my desk or I'm working, I will just, and I have a big issue with one of my employees, I'll just pull this out and just go through this quick little system on commitment, 1 through 10, right? Are they willing and are they confident? On the skill side, right? Are they knowledgeable and do they have the experience? And I'll just run through both of those quickly. I'll graph it and then I'll try to get my mindset in the place I need to be. And I always find that if I have showed this graph to my employees and just did a little skill learning for 15 or 20 minutes, maybe during a lunch at some point, it creates this common language and allows me to move much faster to keep communication very high. Because remember, if you have great hygienists, you have great employees, the reality is that your patients are coming back for them. They get the least amount of time with you. That's not who they're interested in. So situational leadership is one way to help bridge this gap. The other way that you can help bridge this gap is by accountability meetings, okay? So one of the things that I find when I work with dental practices is that there's not consistent meetings to talk about other things outside of clients and outside of patients. So One of the things I encourage you to do is to humanize the relationship. And the way to do that is just schedule a 30-minute or a 1-hour meeting every month with every hygienist or employee you work with. All right. Now, some industries, I say it's weekly, it's bi-weekly. For your industry, I think once a month is more is perfect for what you'll need. All right. It's more relevant. This is what allows you to get your organization to breathe in and breathe out. And that's that communication channel. It's where you are not in the day-to-day. You're giving them that one-on-one time. And here's what will happen to your culture. Hygienists will stop bringing you problems during the week. They will actually bring it to you in their meeting because they know that's when they get to have a conversation with you. Any concerns they're having about their job or their role or what's going on with the practice. It's a chance for them to talk to you and know they have your undivided attention. This is key to making sure you have extremely strong retention of your employees, especially the hygienists. Now, in this meeting, to give you a bit more direction, if you look at my graph on the right of the screen here, it's a very simple agenda. Do a quick check-in, find out how their family is doing, their hobbies they're into, relate, build the rapport, so there's the relationship. Talk about what happened over the last few weeks. What's taken place in these last few weeks? What have gone well and what has not gone well when we've worked on patients together? What's gone well about you being in this role? What hasn't gone well? Just give that moment for reflection. You're going to be shocked some of the things that you hear. Then the current next period, either the week or the next month, what is it that we have to do moving forward to have a better relationship? How are we going to take better care of our patients, or what do we need to change as a practice to add even more value to our patients? What am I doing that's annoying you that I can change? It's not just them, it's also you. It's a breathing organization. It's a two-way feedback. Now I'm going to knock out any administrative things. So instead of just telling people fly by night or sending a bunch of emails, I'm going to hold all the changes I'm making to the practice. I'm going to hold those things so I can be very clear and I know they've heard them and they validate them back so they can't ever say they were not updated on some of the new things that we're doing. And last but not least, we wrap up, make sure we have our next meeting scheduled. And now it's a nice, consistent system that you can follow. Now, there's probably some people that are in the practice that have a very large practice. Maybe they have multiple offices. We've worked with several owners in that situation. It's fine to do this more as a group. Once you get to maybe about 4 or 5 people, it's okay to start maybe doing 2 of these a month with groups of 2 or 3 people, but that way they still feel like they get that individual time. Hygienists and employees are going to bring you what you deem as not that important of problems, but to them it's really important. And it's just important to remember that if they bring them to you outside of one of these meetings, you now have a place to say, hey, that's a great question, or that's a great comment. Bring that back up when we meet for our one-on-one accountability meetings together. Vice versa, when they bring those things to you, you need to treat them as they're important. That's their time. That's how you create that mutual respect. Again, to start the communication at a much higher level, and especially with how many dental practices are dealing with generational gaps, this is a fantastic system that you can implement. It's very simple, only takes a few hours out of your month that will make a massive difference. All right, one of my last items I want to share here as we start to come to a close. I call it our buy-in equation. This is something we've created to help create clarity of what really good leaders sound like. And I know there's probably a lot of dentists here that are analytical on the line, so I wanted to give it to you in a form of an equation. So here's the idea, all right? When you work with someone and you want them to accomplish something for you, it's so common that we just want to tell them exactly how to do it. Do this. This is how you need to do it. This is what I expect. Problem is that you don't understand that the buy-in, although they're not saying anything, is most likely very low. And more today, right? The world's changed. People have information at their fingertips. They can get smart on things very, very quickly. It's not like it was before where we had to slowly, methodically bring someone in. I mean, even hygienists, right? They can go online and they can submit within an hour 100 applications to other practices if you're in a major city and try to get hired. They can leave you so fast. So the stage has changed for leaders. You must elevate your ability to lead more than you've ever needed to. Because your hygienists or your employees that you want to keep, if they don't feel that it's a collaborative environment, they're going to leave. Unfortunately, the market has changed. It used to not be that way, which is why baby boomers used to run themselves through walls like we talked about at the beginning of this. So the buy-in equation is meant to help create that collaboration. And it's just really more of a paradigm shift, if you will, that I'm asking all of you to make as leaders over your practices. You know what the end goal is. So I'm going to start with the end. The execution is what you're looking for, right? End of the day, you don't care. So as long as it's done, should be your mentality. So the equation is the quality of the idea times the buy-in of the idea equals the execution of the idea. And I'm going to give you a really clear example. And I'll make it fun. You're hungry, it's lunchtime, and you would like some unbelievable pizza. All right, let's just have a simple example. And so the execution is that you get pizza delivered at 1 p.m. because it's the only time you have your 20-minute break before you're back in with patients. Your idea is that you want the front desk receptionist to go get you that pizza and bring it back to you. That's your idea. And if I was to ask you 1 through 10, what's the quality of that idea? You'd probably say it's an 8 or 9. Pretty darn good idea because, yeah, you don't have to go do it and you get your food. Now, let's look at the buy-in of the idea. If I was to then ask that front desk receptionist, what's your buy-in of getting that pizza for your boss? There's a chance that she may say it's a 2 or a 3. She's not really that bought in. So now you have an execution of an 8 times 3, right? The quality of the idea is an 8. But the actual buy-in of the idea is a 3, meaning you get an execution of 24. She's going to be late. It's going to be cold. She's not going to order from the right place. She's just not that bought in. It's your idea, not her idea or his idea. That's what this is meant to prove. Let's flip it. Instead, you have the execution of the idea, and this is where I'm going to come back to that why. You would go to your front desk receptionist and say, front desk receptionist, I have lunch at 1 o'clock. I am craving pizza. Any ideas of how I can get that at 1 o'clock? All of a sudden, front desk receptionist says, actually, yeah, one of the other hygienists was saying she might want pizza as well. We actually already thinking about making an order. So I'll just make an order and I'll have it delivered. Quality idea, you kind of like the idea that, they were going to take off for a little bit and get a break so you could be by yourself in the office for a minute. But that's all right. The idea for her is still a 7 or 8. But the buy-in idea, the buy-in that she has is a 7 or 8. So your execution is 70%. When she calls to order that pizza, she's going to make sure that they're there right at 1 o'clock because she knows that's the only time you have because she's so bought in. Now, obviously, I'm using a very silly example because I know every single person could relate to that example. But if you slow this down, it's about the key is identifying what is the end goal you have and just asking the person you're requesting to help you with, how do you want to approach it? And be okay that it's their idea. And although it may not be the best way to approach it, the fact of the matter is their buy-in is going to be so much higher that they're going to be willing to do it. And because it's their idea, they want it to work. They don't want to be embarrassed. So they're going to work that much harder to implement anything that you ask them to do. So, those are a few of the key areas that we're talking about today. And I have a few toolkits here I want to talk about. If you like today and you said, okay, this is helpful, but this is just the start. This was more of just a surface. I want to go much deeper and actually plan a little further. I've got 2 toolkits that you can get from our website. And if you navigate over to the chat functionality, we're going to go ahead and put those 2 links in here in just a moment. The first one is, if you're interested in that leadership system, we actually have a tool that will walk you through how to plug in all the different variables that allow you to build out those systems. The second toolkit that I would encourage you to check out is to have a plan for your employees' development, meaning as you bring on an employee and you have those one-on-ones, start to build a bit of a development plan where they get their personal growth. The reality is if any employee has a relationship with you, if they feel like they have consistent time with you to voice concerns and communicate, and lastly, they feel like you have their best interests in mind for their own personal growth and development, it's very hard to leave you. It's just very, very hard. So again, the first link just showed up. There's the second one. Feel free to grab those out of the chat room. You can just simply download them and it will walk you through how to use that toolkit if you're interested in implementing these for your business. Now, you may be going, well, this is great, but I need a lot more one-on-one and very tailored. My situation is very different. Well, great. I've got a team of advisors. They would love to hear from you. You're not signing up and obligated for anything. If you have any interest in learning more, here's all you need to do. That final bottom link that Cassie just posted here in the link, or sorry, in the chat room, if you click on that, it's going to go to a schedule. And it's going to allow you to spend about 30 minutes on the phone to learn more about how we help small business owners like dental practices grow. If it be on leadership, recruiting, sales, marketing. Kind of a really cool offer is we do a 2-hour free roadmap session. So once we identify who's a good advisor for you, we will then put you in touch with for free for 2 hours. We do this because we're really passionate about small business owners. And we understand that there's so many owners that are really good at their craft, which in your world is dentistry, but they struggle at the core elements of how to run a business. And all of our advisors have ran successful businesses. They've scaled them. They've exited them. They're happy to sit down and help you build a roadmap. The value for us is after we build that roadmap, more commonly than not, owners say, can you help me implement this? And that's where we come in and can work with you one-on-one. But otherwise, we just want to make this offer due to the relationship that you have with your bank to be able to make this available to you, although normally we have a small charge. So again, 2 different resources. You have toolkits. You can kind of do it on your own by clicking the top 2 links in the chat room, or you're more than welcome to grab that other link, grab a time with Cassie to just hear about 30 more minutes of what we do, tell us a lot more about your practice, and then we'll select an advisor for you to sit down one-on-one for free and really help you work through. And if it's on leadership, what we're talking about today, great. If there's a really core problem you want to solve, but we can also talk about marketing, how to actually grow your practice. We can work through recruiting if you're wanting to recruit people. We also even have some financial advisors that can help you. So just tell us a little bit about what's holding you back from growth, and we just want to help try to problem solve that for you and see how we might be able to support you. All right. So this can be you, right? You're a dentist by day, but you're also an owner by night. There are solutions here. You just have to train and develop yourself. I hope you found some value from today. If you want to learn more about us, we do have a webinar that we're going to be teaching, all right, internally. It's on June 12th. We're going to talk about how to build a marketing engine. Now, we'll have hundreds and hundreds of small business owners at that point, so that will not just be dentists only, just so I'm very, very clear. The other item we have is we actually have a small business conference we run annually. It's going to be in September this year. You're going to have a couple hundred small business owners. It's all workshop-based. It's not keynote-based. You actually sit down with other like-minded people in your industry, and you get to really build your skills and build your plan of how you're going to grow into 2019 and get this practice to where you want it. If you would like more information, oops, sorry about that. I just clicked the wrong item. I'm going to launch this other poll, and you can just let us know if you would like more information on these. So if you'd like us to sign you up for the Marketing Engine webinar, go ahead and click there. If you would like us to send you more information about the conference just to check out the agenda, we're happy to send that your way so you can learn more. Otherwise, if you'd like the deck from this webinar, go ahead and select that as well, and we will send that your way at the end of this webinar. Give us about 24 hours to get it your way. So I'm going to leave this final screen up here in just a moment, but to wrap it up, remember what I asked when we first started? You're looking for 2 clear takeaways. So I see a few of you are in the chat. If you want, feel free to share with us. What did you grab from today? And if you don't want to, that's okay too, but I just ask, go back through your notes from today. Circle the 2 biggest things that you want to keep doing and take action on, and just focus on those. It's about making small tweaks as a business owner. That's what helps add up to a much larger growth plan, is those small tweaks in your skill. So thank you so much for attending. Thanks for spending your lunchtime with us, and have a great weekend. The weather is absolutely getting a lot better here throughout the Midwest. Here are the dates to leave. Thanks again for attending. Take care.